Well, it says that we are on air. I will keep an eye on the stream and hopefully somebody will let us know whether it's working. I'll quickly post it in. But Bill, what have you been up to this past week?
I bought a house this week.
Congratulations.
I'm going through the crazy stuff that you go through in an industry that needs disruption. It's really ugly the way that they try to hide information. Like the escrow company wanted to keep all the information as quiet as possible, so they barely gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
It was difficult to wire them a deposit.
Now, where did you purchase it? Because I noticed you were taking a lot of pictures, not in Carlsbad.
I purchased in Carlsbad. I found a place that I liked in Carlsbad. I went out the other day. The realtor had a place to show me in Oceanside, but I didn't like that one. And she had a couple other places, and there was one in La Costa in Carlsbad that was really nice. It has like
I love La Costa.
It has 2 patios, one on each floor.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, and the first floor patio is large. It's like 16 by 16.
I don't think I've ever even seen a place with 2 patios.
Yeah.
I want 2 porches. So I've got twice as many places to shout, "Get off my lawn!"
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'll handle people asking, is there a link this week?
Yeah, I've just posted it into the event page. I was waiting until we knew, the stream was working and we weren't going to have to restart, because last thing I want to do is invite everybody in and then we've all got to move. It's
Right.
Yeah, that would be. So I'm going to have to resubmit my address to a bunch of local sites again.
Oh, man.
Pay somebody to do that.
Oh.
Bill, talk to Darren. He's got a good service for that, really.
He does.
Yeah.
Would that be Darren Rouse?
White Spark.
Yeah. He's actually got a special deal on the audits for guys like us.
Okay. Dawn in the comments is trying to mess with my mind here. I know I said I wouldn't be here and I'm not, she says. Dawn in the comments is trying to mess with my mind here. I know I said I wouldn't be here and I'm not, she says.
Now your mind's really messed with, right?
Entered an echo chamber. Hey, Doc.
It's a standard time travel effect until Doc hits the stop button on the replay.
Right.
Yeah, I'll get there. Terry, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, putting things back together. A client decided to try someone else and found out what happens. So I've been putting that back together all week. Had some good conversations in the dojo. One I kind of want to run by the panel here at some point. We were discussing how in mobile they can now see tab data, which is fine and dandy, but here's my problem with it. And the Raiders guide said that Raiders should pretty much disregard stuff that's not visible on the page when they come to it. And that's my problem with people who are saying, there were a couple of people in the dojo who thought they pretty well had it made because Google could now index that stuff. What they don't realize is they can index it, but they still might not count it as being part of the, they may not count it in the ranking of the site.
The latest on that was that it would be counted in the ranking algorithms if it's basically tabs, because with the limited real estate for mobile, as mobile first becomes more important, tab design is usable. But they will be looking to make sure that that is exactly what's hidden and nothing else. And yes, it could change. So
yeah, and that's my point. Is that the Raiders guide? If they haven't changed the Raiders guide, that means that. Pardon me.
That's been subsumed. Basically, the Raiders guide, as was published a couple of years ago, when it said it's got to be visible on the page. This is a change that's come in the last 6 months. The most recent takes precedent.
Okay.
Now it doesn't. It has to be visible when you go to the page and use the tabs, i.e., it can't be completely hidden, not tucked away. But yeah, tabbed content can be counted.
So it's like
saying it could be abused, but Google are going to be on top of that. They're going to be doing all they can to check it. And as always, the biggest risk in anything like that is if you try anything too tricky, guess what? Your competitors are also doing SEO. They're keeping an eye on your site. You try a trick, they will be dobbing you in and reporting you. The biggest risk in anything sneaky these days isn't Google detecting it automatically. It's your competitors reporting it.
Right. My thing is, though, that to me, the worst experience somebody can have from a search engine is for the search engine to say, this snippet is there, and then they can't go and find it. That's probably the worst user experience that Google can give.
Yeah. I still find that sometimes where content is very dynamic, particularly where Google uses social media a lot more these days, and by social media I'm including things like forums, and that content is very dynamic, and sometimes you click on the link and you cannot find that bit of text that you were supposed to be finding on that page for love nor money. Sometimes it's on a different page of the thread and it's sent you to the first page of it. Other times you're not even sure when it was there. It just when the spider last picked it up, and that already happens.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see to hear John's opinion on it as well.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that a couple of groups actually that I belong to were talking about this week. One of the main ones was talking about the fake news, and that basically Google's algorithm at the moment does everything it can to promote it. They were saying that it looked like click-through rates were such a feature in search now that it was pushing fake news. Clickbait headlines were automatically being boosted more than they had been in previous algorithms. And yeah, I pushed back against that. I said that what I think actually does it is the increase in personalization and the increase in social media importance does that. And of course, it's the clickbait stuff that does most often get shared.
Yeah, news would be more susceptible to clicking, right? Because they want to be as in the moment as they can, like as much real time as they can. Yeah. Like that's pretty well been since they got scooped by TMZ on Michael Jackson death, right? Yeah. Like within a month after that, you could find results that were like seconds old.
But we've also said in the past, the biggest value of something like the Twitter fire hose is that instant pickup, because Twitter breaks so much news these days. That's one of the reasons you want it. And what gets shared more on Twitter, the clickbait stuff or the deep, meaningful articles? And you know what it is? It's the clickbait stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's going to have to be a lot more complexity to their algorithms before they aren't automatically tending to put that fake news stuff much higher than it deserves to be. Hey Jen, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Yeah, doing good. Keeping warm.
I had snow this week. I was pretty excited.
I've just got it in the background. That's all.
I was actually pretty impressed because on Saturday afternoon, I tweeted that Google sent me a push alert saying it was going to snow here. And I'm like, what? And I went and looked at, we have Environment Canada, which is kind of like our official weather service for all across Canada. And it was like, no, it's going to be sunny and cloudy. And so I joked about it, totally expecting sunny and cloudy. And then I woke up the next morning to like an inch of snow outside. And I'm like, holy crap, Google was right. And not our, our official weather service.
Yeah. Well, they've got so many staff and so much money now. They just sent 1,000 engineers to pile snow. Why do you think they bought that great big jet?
Yeah. Where's Jen Star's house? Let's go and put all the snow in the 100-foot radius around her house.
They've got the flight bay open and pumping out the dry ice like you wouldn't believe.
If they could drop off some rare Pokemon here, that would be pretty helpful too.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey Fab.
Oh, sorry. Is the BBC Weather Watcher? Is that the thing where people actually, or is that just sending pictures of the weather?
It suddenly went quiet.
Well, here we don't get snow. Our last time we had snow here was in 2014, even though I am in Canada. So anytime that we get snow here or the expectation of snow, it's a huge deal. Like we're like, yes, snow. And then we get to, listen to all the drivers complain because they don't know how to drive in half an inch of snow. But that's why it's such a big deal for me. I'm like, yes, snow.
No. We don't often get white Christmas here. I tend to always live in the south of England. Yeah. Scotland, you can certainly get a white Christmas still. But then again, Scotland, you can get a white October.
Buffalo gets all our snow.
Hey, Doc, how are you?
Doing good, Ammon. How about yourself, everybody?
Yeah. Cool. What have you been up to in the past week?
Oh, well, just still cranking up a new clients campaign, and yesterday and today I'm in the process of moving 2 more sites off of an old host over to HTTPS. So that's going to keep me busy for the next couple of days, I think.
That's a bit rude, coming on our Hangout and then commenting on old hosts.
That's rude, eh? But I gotta tell you, your green screen backdrop there is making me cold just looking at it. I'm real happy that Jen is pleased to see her snow, but I don't even want to see it on a 17-inch screen. Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah, if
I'm
you can
just
see
glad
my
I didn't
window,
have to
you can
duck
see
right
like a
through it.
little teeny bit of snow outside my window, but it's pretty much melted again.
Oh, we get to see the bling foam there. Look at it, glittering.
It's just my case.
You missing the snow, Bill?
No, I'm not.
Good man.
No, I left my snow shovels back east with my hats and gloves and scarves and jackets.
Just wait till global warming hits you.
Hopefully it won't be a polar vortex.
Well, I guess where you are, it's more likely the water level rising, isn't it, than snow?
Yeah, I'll just make sure I have my surfboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inflatable raft.
Yeah.
Fab, how are you? What have you been up to this week? No, Fab? No, obviously his sound isn't working. No.
You heard it.
Christine, is she there yet? You there?
Kind of.
Yes,
He's
I've
scared him
kind of.
off.
kind of. What have you been up to recently? Lots of right tag stuff.
Yeah, and product hunt stuff. I'm starting a couple of new user groups for different products, doing testing. So that's always fun.
Yes. And how's the eternal struggle to find the right words?
In writing or verbally?
Well, both really. You know, this is it. In today's marketing world, it's a mixture of all channels.
Yeah. And today I'm not live, so well, at least visually.
Not yet. Not yet.
I got a
Hopefully.
strike there.
Yeah.
How about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I finally connected one of the YouTubers that I was talking about connecting with. It took a while to arrange a time when we could have a proper chat, but we managed that. And nice guy. I already knew that from his channel. But
And what
certainly,
medium did you use? Like what platform? Just curious.
I think we went with Skype. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We could have used Discord and we could have used several other things, but you know, Skype was the one that we happened to use as we were sort of swapping messages across various platforms to get in touch and get it sorted. Yeah, I mean, it was a good little chat, and turns out YouTube's definitely picked up a bit. His level of income is already not bad considering the number of subscribers he has. You know, we were looking at subscriptions. You know, it's a few thousand, more than 4, less than 10, and is already making about £50 a day.
And when
which
did
is-
like the change happen? Like, did he see like a sharp spike recently, or because they've made like quite a few changes to the user interface and the way that things function? I've noticed.
This particular guy's only been really doing this about a year, and most of those changes happened earlier. And of course, by the time things were ramping up, you know, it's only in recent times, I think. But it's certainly a higher income than it ever used to be. No, you know, don't get me wrong, £50 a day is still not a living wage. You know, it's kind of part-time job level, but on just a few thousand subscribers, that's a significant improvement over what you used to be able to.
Yeah.
You used to be looking at having about 1 million subscribers before it paid a living wage. And
is this like typical? Are you like, have you seen
that's what
very
I'm
many
not
cases?
sure of yet. He's got a very focused stream. You know, he's quite clear about what he does. It has a clear demographic. So that will be, I would think, part of it. You know, this is something I always say about advertising. It's not about the numbers alone.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, "Oh, I can get your ad in front of 5,000 people," you know, that's 5,000 people. But if you can say, "I can get your ad in front of 5,000 teenagers between this age and this age," or "I can get your ad to 5,000 doctors," or "I can get your ad to 5,000 marketers," the minute you start having demographic targeting, the value shoots up massively. And so that could be a part of it.
That's actually one of the advantages of YouTube is find the right channels, and you don't need a lot of channels to generate what you need.
Yeah.
Does this person have a product they sell as well, or just ads?
This is pure ads.
Wow.
And they are also on Twitch. And yeah, you know, they're finding YouTube is generating much more money for them right now.
So the income is like he separates it, or here? Did you say he or she?
He and yeah, you know, at the moment, I mean, he's tying it all together to get, you know, a wage going, but he certainly indicated that AdWords is where the bulk is coming from at the moment. Twitch did him no favors. He recently got a partnership, which lets you, you know, it ties in the subscription stuff much more easily.
Right.
But there's a level at which, you know, people think you're better off than you are. This is exactly what used to happen with YouTube. A YouTuber who had a couple of 100,000 subscribers, everyone thought was well off, and so they didn't do the donations and the Patreon and stuff like that. And actually, you know, 200,000 was not a living wage back then at all. You know, a TV station with only 200,000 viewers would not be making ad revenue. That's kind of what you're talking about. 200,000 when you're talking in advertising terms is not very many. But it does seem that Google is doing a much better job at monetizing that right now.
Notifications seem much more streamlined. Like, I mean, that's like the most obvious change that I've seen just over the past week. Like, it used to be that, like, I would click on my notifications from YouTube and I would still see G+ notifications, but now I'm only seeing the subscriptions, like what I've subscribed to in YouTube. Yeah,
there's definitely been increasing levels of divorce between G+ and YouTube. You know that, you know, YouTubers were quite aggressive about G+ being forced on them when it first came in. You know, YouTube already was a social media platform, and it's one thing I try and point out to people is that, you know, it's easy to think Orkut and G+ are Google's only social media platform, but their most successful is YouTube, which has massive communities.
Part of their integration with Google Plus and YouTube, though, was to try to impact the comment trolls, because it was also, you had to have a Google Plus to leave comments, because some of the comments on videos you see posted are absolutely horrific. And so I see why they tried to use that to kind of force some sort of, I mean, even though it's easy to set up a fake one, it was something where I think back then you needed to actually do phone verification for new Google accounts. So I can see why they kind of did it to try to combat the combat trolls, but I don't think it solved the problem completely. But
I think they tried to use it as a deterrent, right?
Yeah. It made a huge difference, because I know a lot of people were going and allowing comments on their videos again, but I think it's kind of degraded again since then.
It didn't clear up much on some particular types of things anyway. I watch quite a lot of gaming stuff, and of course,
they're horrible.
They can be they're
absolutely horrible. So, like Twitch as well. If you watch some of the chat streams on Twitch, oh my good lord. You can learn how to swear in every language.
We can now like pin comments to the top. That was a pretty neat thing.
I think is good.
Yeah, like I thought that was really cool when I saw that I could actually do that, because I had been reading about it, you know, for forever. But like, it actually came to me. I was like, yes, I got the roll around. It was exciting.
Well, there's been a lot of talk, of course, about Google really starting to leverage YouTube more. I believe one of the claims is, of course, that, you know, Google are aiming to get a lot more TV channels, perhaps even all of the TV channels, onto streaming on their property, whether that's through YouTube Red or YouTube Regular, whichever. Certainly that was one of the stated objectives, that, you know, they want more and more TV programs there.
I think they're going to have to make YouTube much more annoying, because I don't use Red and I'm just fine.
We can't get Red in Canada. Do they have it in the UK?
I've checked it out, but I think it was, you know, basically the US version. I don't think it's available for streamers to use yet outside of the US.
Something that's kind of interesting, when I was going and looking at some, I was doing videos on my TV, and the comment is that a lot of times when you're watching YouTube videos and they do the pre-roll ad, by the time you figure out how to use your remote to pass the ad, I bet you they have a ton of views of ads simply from people like, oh, how do I skip this? I can see that I can skip this ad now, but how do I actually click it on a TV?
That's funny.
And also, you notice that some of the pop-up ads that appear, that cross to close it has got much smaller, and it's in the middle. You know, within
I've
the
noticed it's,
clickable
like,
area.
higher.
So if you miss slightly, you've got to click through. Which
Yeah.
I
One
don't
pixel.
like, but I'm sure it's doing very well for them in getting click-throughs.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
there you go.
Fine.
How are you, Fab? What have you been up to this week?
Not too bad. Yeah, this week has been mainly on content and on what we're doing there. And since some stuff is working, like we literally celebrated not to build any single links for an entire year, and getting emails from other websites saying, "I've been linking to your content because it's the best one that I found." So this is decent, and but obviously, you know, it's easier to get some wins, but at the same time, to get proper links, you need to get more and better quality. So is work on that front.
Yeah. And, you know, that's always been one of the things, is that you don't have to be the first, you don't have to be the best writer. Sometimes the simplest thing is to be the most comprehensive, to acknowledge the fact that there is other content out there,
Yeah.
and to acknowledge the stuff that's better than your own, and to link to it.
Yeah.
Because if they're only going to bookmark or link to one, they're going to link to the one that links to all of the others.
Yeah, some of this stuff is I don't think we did. That was a masterpiece of like writing. Like it was more kind of a very functional type of content that was very comprehensive, as you said, like super functional and very comprehensive. But in that case, it was missing out there. So people, customer, like user like it, but even other sites, they apparently like it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you find a niche. You know, Bill is the prime example of this. There aren't many people who go through the patents meaningfully. I mean, literally, I can think of 2 other SEOs that do it, and they don't do it very often or in much depth. And, you know, I mean, it gets Bill the fact that, you know, everyone knows that site and everyone turns to it when they're interested in a particular piece of paper. But also, forgive me, Bill, but it does have the advantage sometimes of people linking to it so that they don't have to read it, and they can just pretend that they understood it by linking to you, and they trust you completely, but they haven't got a clue what you were saying. It's obvious sometimes when you talk to them, they link to it, but they didn't understand it.
That happens.
At the same time, I think that if you manage to keep that standard for so many years, it means no one got any better in doing it, right? And it's easier for people to jump on something and like say, oh, you know, this like niche seems quite profitable. Let's write some stuff around it. But then how can you actually, you know, would anyone read anything else and trust that thing in the way it has been researched and everything at that point? Yeah, it's challenging.
It's sometimes the thing of how much work is involved. You know, if somebody can just take your paper and change a few words to make it their own, that's not hard. If the level of thought in it wasn't particularly deep, again, you know, they can read it, they've got the gist, and then they just say it in their own words. You can't do that very easily with Bill's content and with some other content out there that's decently in depth. You have to understand it. You have to put in the time to read it to make it different. And of course, as we say, honestly, you know, some of the people who link to Bill's haven't read Bill's version of it, never mind the original paper.
I'll bet you there's a lot of posts on Bill's site where there's more retweets than actual people who voted, who actually visited the article. Same with Jennifer's site. Like, I think a big thing in social media now is, how do I automate this? And they're using RSS feeds and stuff like that to automate.
But the funny thing is, okay, so like I work with an app that, you know, I love the developers and everything, but the one thing that I very much so struggled with ethically here is our automation. And if you pay attention to someone's feed and they have automated, it's very easy to pick up on because they're not posting the most current information. And so in that regard, I think that there is a measure of danger with automation.
Almost everything that I did that with came out within minutes of when that post was dropped. In other words,
Yep.
I was catching the ping and posting to Twitter immediately. I didn't have to do anything.
I would think that it would be relatively easy for Google to find footprints and patterns to filter out at least what appeared to be automated to a pretty good degree, because they follow pretty much the same patterns, all those tools.
Yep.
And most of them are garbage interaction.
Yeah, it's a bit like the paperly things that collate the tweets people have done and turn it into a little newsletter. Let's face it, most of us don't read those. The only time we'll ever click through to one of those if it mentions us, just to see which of our tweets they picked up.
Of course, I
actually
never
went to,
look at it otherwise.
I went to a business site the other day and I was going to tweet something at them. And when I went and viewed their Twitter account, all they had was all these paperly posts. Like that's all they had posted for months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like if you exclude automation, I think is also a behavior that people have on social. So we analyzed how many people comment or shared one post, and most of them, they were, I think, genuine, and how many people got to even half of an article. And there was a big discrepancy because like if someone like we analyzed how many people comment or shared one post, and most of them, they were, I think, genuine, and how many people got half of an article.
I'm just going to mute you while you catch up. Oh, there you go. Let us know. I think we've kind of pointed out many times in the past that automation is a very risky thing. Hey, Righty. All kinds of automation enables, if it isn't set up right, that mistake will happen and happen at automated speeds, which is always a big problem. And if something looks thoughtless, it's going to look thoughtless fast before you get a chance to check it. Yeah.
If I publish a new blog post and then I go to tweet the blog post, I'm usually like the 15th person who's tweeted that blog post because all these people have if this then that thing set up that tell it if I write something, if I publish something new to tweet it immediately. And I'm concerned that sometimes that might be putting stress on my server for them to do that.
Well, they're just picking it up from the RSS, aren't they?
Are they?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
But like people do it organically in their feed as well. So they're on social media. They want to see a couple of things that will make them cool, and we'll just see Bill's post, scroll in, and then boom.
Bill, I used to have an account on a site that Yahoo bought, and I could run all the RSS feeds through there, and it tweeted and it posted on Twitter and Facebook and all over the place, all automated. And when I started working with Dave on the dojo, the first articles we posted by me, I was interested, and we saw that at least double it was retweeted twice as much as people actually came to the site and read the post.
Yeah.
It evened out later in the day because I think people retweet it and then go back and read it, knowing the site doesn't put crap out there.
Or
actually,
they intend to go back and then never get around to it.
For sure. Like a bookmarking service. Like I used to do that a lot more with Twitter, but now I use Refind to do that. It's kind of like a living bookmark system. I've tried to push it on all of you, I'm sure. So I won't go into it, but it is pretty neat app.
There were so many bookmarking apps a while ago, and actually they pretty much all died a death, if you remember. And some of them were huge. When was the last time you really paid much attention to those? I get the thing, Bill. I mean, there's a kind of compliment in that somebody trusts your stuff to always be worth sharing, so they've set up a rule. But if they had to set up that to do it, it's a bit like those automated birthday greetings. Well, you didn't actually remember my birthday at all, did you? Your calendar just automatically did it. That's not. We always say that what counts is the thought. Now, if you've got a notification that tells you Bill's got a new article out, and you go and check it out and tweet it, that's a different thing. That's a compliment. If you just set up an automated rule where you haven't even checked it and it auto tweets, that's not a compliment. And more to the point, Bill's probably going to go, you know what? I can't trust anything this person shares because they obviously haven't had time to read it ever. If they're doing it to me, they're doing it to everything they share.
Where it used to be, it's the thought that counts. Now it's the total lack of effort on my part that makes it easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is always one of the dangers with automation. If you need to automate it, it probably wasn't worth doing in the first place.
To speak to Refine. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
What do you think about these chat bots that people are using to engage users? That's
So
garbage.
embarrassing. There are a few bots, like chat bots, that I think are very useful. Like there's one called Visa Bot, and it helps immigrants be able to get like all their paperwork and everything sorted before they come over here. And that is a useful type of bot that is automated. And I just want to say one thing about Refine that is really cool is that when you go into Google search, like if you have clicked on a link before, then it'll show up, and you can also see the other people, that you're following or whatever, and see what they have also clicked on. So it's kind of like a way of gauging, what is the term? Yeah, I can't think of it, but proof of something.
Michael Thomas in the comments said automation is spam in his opinion, and he agrees with me about a well-deserved death for the bookmarking sites that were once so prevalent. They were kind of useful in their way, but let's face it, more marketers used them than anybody else. And it was just, oh look, a free link. You know what happens there? Hey Roti, have you sorted out your sound? Unmute and say hello. Maybe not.
I'll tell you about Visa Bot later, Martini. Sorry, I didn't know about it when you were coming over here.
Can't hear you, Rody.
Well, let's just all make him feel very awkward and be very quiet.
Hopefully he'll be able to sort out the sound in a little while. It just seems that the mic is very quiet. But yeah, as far as I understand it, he just has moved location, successfully snuck past Trump. But yeah, as far as I understand it, Roti is now resident in the USA.
Yep, and he can hang out just fine. Yeah. He'll be fine once he gets it sorted.
Hangouts likes to mess with us. It does, Yeah. It's one of the things, it's in some ways the simplest of platforms. I think, when the guys at Blab were saying, oh, our product is great because it's simpler than almost anything else. Well, it wasn't simpler than Hangouts. you know, it wasn't. It was as simple, but it wasn't simpler. It had chat tie-in, but so does YouTube these days. It took them a long time to get there, and I still think that they need to improve the YouTube chat further. I do like what Discord are doing, and the fact that you can now tie that in with several platforms. Yeah, you know, Blab just didn't quite do anything that anybody needed. They didn't seem to be aware of their rival products, and you know, that's when you're marketing anything, the most important thing is to know your market, and that means know what everybody else is offering and why people buy this product, that product, what they don't buy. Because before you spend money on doing something different, you need to make sure it's different from what's around, not because 3 people did it before and all died. You know, there are things out there that, yeah, nobody's doing this anymore, but they used to, and nobody bought it. That's why there's nobody doing it anymore. Just being different isn't enough. It's got to be valuable. And I do think the Blab weren't enough aware of the rest of the market.
In other chat news, Slack came out with something today where you can video call right within. If you have a paid team, then you can have up to 15 people. But it's still not recorded, so you still have to have like your screen recorder application, whatnot.
Yeah,
I tried it the other day. It didn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me either. Like my Slack app, like the Windows application, like I can't even use it. Like I go in and I go into the app data and I delete all of that, and like I have to do this like once a month at least. And like in the last 2 weeks, that hasn't even worked. So I've just been using Slack Web.
They kind of need to mix it with Snapchat and you know, Snapchat. Slack is useful, but I know a lot of people have reservations. It still needs more, doesn't it? It's not perfect. It's useful, but it's not great.
You can say that about a lot of social channels, though. You know? I quit joining them for that reason. I find I join it, never use them, you know, and I don't use some of the ones that I'm on still, even though I have good followings and everything. Don't do much there because, you know, I was there because everyone else was. Now everyone else is gone, so I have no reason to actually do anything more there.
We use Slack as internal communication, and it's quite good, but also I guess it very much depends on how many people there are in the company. So we're reaching out the point where it's probably in a few years.
But to me, right, I have Skype. I don't need anything else. Everybody else is on that. Why join the other ones? Like,
Skype is very powerful that way. It's still, you know, one heck of a tool. I think a lot of people were put off, of course, when Microsoft took it over. But yeah, I know.
never understood
You're a
that.
Microsoft fanboy, though. You was IE for goodness sake.
I guess it's because I'm a Microsoft developer, or was, so. But I never understood it. To me, I'd use Unix if that's what the job called for. You know, like, use the best tool around. Why not use something just because it comes from Microsoft? That does not make sense to me.
It's kind of like buying something just because it comes from Apple.
Right, exact same thing. You know, I look at those people standing out front of a store for hours to get a phone. I say get a life.
Sandy, we're talking about sleeping bags.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The ultimate of
Those
that
people, I don't even want to think about that. You know, someone who sleep outside of a store to be the first one to get a phone. That does not compute at all. Like,
There's a lot of people that do that in our industry.
the Apple
Yeah, but
Watch.
it just doesn't make sense to me. I guess
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
wouldn't.
old and whatnot, but even when I was younger, I would have laughed at somebody who did something
Well,
like that.
Terry, that's because you're so focused on boosting your clout score.
Yes. But the Apple Watch is kind of like the ultimate example of that. I knew one person who got one and bitterly regretted it. But yeah, I mean, what did it do for you? Nothing. And it wasn't as if anybody even made out that it had wonderful uses that were necessary for anybody. That is the one. People bought it just because it was Apple and it was new.
To me, it's almost like being slave to a logo.
I have friends that use Apple Watches and like use them religiously. I use a Microsoft Band, which will pop up like if I get a phone call or get a text or something. And that part I find really convenient because if I don't have my phone
phones
open.
Don't ring, do they?
Yeah. And so like my mom knows that if I don't answer my phone, she either sends me a text message because it comes to my wrist, or she sends me an email, which comes to my wrist if I don't happen to be sitting on my email. And like,
before that, it came to your phone.
And my dad will try to get a hold of me, and she's like, you can't get a hold of her, Jennifer, by phoning her. You have to email her.
Yeah, it really is one of those things that I see it as completely pointless because.
Yeah, I mean, this band does track sleep and steps and stuff, but
my phone would have beeped and I'd have looked. Okay,
I don't
now
always
it's on
have my
wrist.
phone near me, and I don't. I find
Instead
that
of
part of
picking
it
it off the desk, I look at my wrist. There's not even a real difference in distance. Maybe I'll get a tiny bit more arm exercise with having it on my wrist, but that's about it. I do not see the point at all.
Well, I also, when I'm out, I have my phone in my purse. I don't have it like attached to my hand or anything too. So that part's handy. But I would never, like, with an Apple Watch, like all the apps and stuff you put on it, I would be like, if they put a Pokemon app on there, maybe okay. Ooh, there's a Pokemon, let's catch that. That would be like the extent of any apps I would use on a phone. You can see Terry laughing at me.
Yeah. Yeah, if that's the best argument for it, I don't think you're going to win this argument.
Well, that's why I don't have an Apple Watch.
It does seem like one of those completely pointless things because, if I'm not answering my phone, well, your phone rings. If somebody calls you, your phone rings. The only way that isn't going to happen is because if you've turned it off.
I don't hear it if I'm listening to music on my headset and stuff.
Yeah, how did we ever get by in the days of busy signals and party lines without having?
Apple did catch my attention with all the health related stuff, the health kit, home kit stuff, measuring your pulse rate, things like that.
I think the health segment is the only probably interesting. So people that do sport, health, and that stuff. And to be honest, it's quite intriguing the fact that now you can keep track of some basic health stats and store them and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, Google Fit does it when I bring my phone with me. So like the only thing is the heartbeat and some other stuff. But yeah.
The thing is, the Fitbit has already got a lead there in terms of monitoring a lot of things. There was somebody that we used to have come in the Hangout was working on an app that was going to do more with health, and it would be able to keep track of things like the amount of sunlight exposure your skin was getting in areas with skin cancer risk, or it could keep track of pollen counts and send you alerts. You can still do that with a phone for most people. The wrist, unless that watch has sensors in it that
This has UV sensor in it actually, but being in Canada, I turned it off. But if I was somewhere warm, it would tell me.
I bet the UK version doesn't even offer that.
I think it's got a little gutter on it and it measures rainfall.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. There is a certain amount of technology for technology's sake in all things. In internet marketing, we certainly see this an awful lot. There are certain SEO tools produced that aren't really built for most people's usage, and don't offer anything different to 80 other tools that are out there apart from this one's mine. Yeah,
I've been fighting all week with, well, not fighting, but just replying to sales pitches from tools. And probably because it's the end of the year, people want to get the last commission in. So they email you, even though 2 months ago you told them that you were not interested. And most of them, they sell platforms that are pretty much the same. They use pretty much the same data. And in the past 2 weeks, I had to change 3 laptops because my Chromebook broke. And then I went into a Mac. Now I have a ThinkPad with Ubuntu. And the only 2 tools that I needed was a browser and Screaming Frog. There was nothing else that was kind of impacting my life that much as in my job to not work. Obviously, some of them are web-based, and with the browser you can still use them. But I didn't use any of them, either with the web-based, and it's like 2 weeks of work: a spreadsheet, a Screaming Frog, and the browser. That's that's like.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Sam. I think those are the 2 you absolutely have to have. As long as I can get to Skype, I can survive. Without the Screaming Frog, I'd be up the creek without a pedal.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a thing we've mentioned a couple of times. There's only a handful of essential tools. They vary slightly from people, depending on exactly what part of the industry they're in. There are people who regard Majestic as absolutely essential because they're primarily into link building. If you are a link builder, if that's your primary role, then obviously keeping up with link data is going to be the most important single thing for you. If you're doing a lot of site audits and things like that, Screaming Frog is certainly right there. Where these things come into your life is always the big part. But there's certain tools that are out there that don't seem to be essential to anybody.
Especially aggregators where we on top of what I just mentioned, we have like both href and Majestic data, but none of these and people that just repurpose this data into their tool plus with like a ranking tracker. It's just an interface that I'm buying, and unless in my company we cannot build it, there's nothing unique that otherwise we couldn't get.
There's lots of unique stuff in Majestic that you can't get in hrefs.
I don't know. We use. I mean, we don't do link building, but we have both. The thing that I don't understand is people that make me pay to pull Majestic data or href data into their interface. that's the stuff that it doesn't unless I need that tool to do a very specific action.
Just so you know, if you have a Majestic account, you shouldn't have to pay for that.
No. Exactly.
You can use the Majestic API and pull it in yourself for free.
Yeah. And the other thing with probably is more of an agency thing but in our case, we have our own database and we don't share data with any of the tool, and that means that I cannot, because we have data protected as well because we work in finance. So there's no point in which I can plug my data into a tool to make it look like sexy versus just using APIs and fill my database with what I need.
Well,
I agree, Terry, that there's some stuff that you can do in Majestic that you can't do in href. And if you're watching Dixon, you guys are not doing a great job of making some of that known, because there's a couple of features I just recently learned from Terry in the dojo that I had no idea you could do. There really needs to be a little bit better map of the capabilities there in Majestic. I think you'll sell more for it.
Michael showing David was reacting to the thing about technology, and people always wanting the latest. To say he remembers really wanting sea monkeys when he was younger. That didn't work out, and that's kind of cured him. Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I remember that always advertised in the comics books when I was a kid. There was always the ad for sea monkeys and making it look wonderful. Yeah, it's water fleas. That's all it is. John Mueller says, "What about implants?" Do you know what? I mean, I'm a big fan, but again, they've got to be able to do something useful. I think health monitors and things like that are being implanted are wonderful. When you look at some of the implants we take for granted now, a pacemaker is old tech, but it's truly game changing. It is a huge thing, a portable life support, if you like. There are other implants that keep track of all kinds of things. There are implants that are helping people. So far, it all seems to be medical that are actually counting. The others are gimmicks so far, but I'm looking forward to when that becomes less true, when implants actually have more function.
Google search implants.
Yeah, I'm less worried about that, but I mean, I'm a big fan of the books, Neuromancer, the William Gibson novels, where people have interfaces built into them, so they can jack straight into the internet directly. Yeah, I think one day that kind of thing will be happening. I think one day we may well have implants where we can plug in new knowledge, accessible memories. Why not? It's technically possible in the long run. I think we're a long way from it. And of course, then you've really got to worry about hackers, haven't you?
Oh,
Yeah, that would change the idea of a bad
hacking
download.
your heart.
Of course, Aidan wanted to know what kind of implants he was talking about. Yeah, I don't think those ones. Yeah, wrong use of silicon there. It is an exciting time to be around. We are exploring so many different things that it's very exciting, but it also... Does anyone else feel there's this real lack of focus? But because there's so many things to explore, it sometimes feels like nobody's doing any of them properly.
Yeah, I think that there's just such a desire to do something new, maybe because it'll make a big buck, maybe because it'll make a big impact. But there's just this realization that with all the technology that's available, if you have an idea, there may well be a way to make it happen without thinking about A, the consequences of making it happen, and B, making it efficient and really worthwhile. I think there's a lot of things going on right now in science that concern me because they're not thinking about the consequences, the potential consequences, not necessarily existent, but potentially. And simply, the FDA approved some drug because, yes, it cured his eyelash twitch. And the fact that his penis fell off 3 weeks later is a side effect that, hey, at least your eyelash isn't twitching anymore,
Yeah.
GMO is one that concerns me because I think that we don't have any clue yet what the human impact of GMO may be. Maybe there aren't any. But when you start putting modified DNA into an organism that has been handling it for centuries and centuries and centuries, and you change it radically, there's reason to believe that there could be some downstream change. Those things need to be investigated, not just using technology because you can.
Yeah.
What's interesting related to GMO is the whole pesticide use. And there was an article I read last week that I found super fascinating, was about Cuba, that they haven't been able to import all these pesticides because of like the embargoes and everything. But they have had no loss of all their honeybees. Like in America is like this huge problem right now that they're losing all these honeybees, and they're fairly certain it's connected to pesticide. But sure enough, in Cuba, they've had no loss of any of their honeybees. And so that's a pretty strong connection right there, that it's definitely pesticides.
That is a biggie. Man, if we lose the bee, we are screwed as people.
Yeah.
It's certainly, something that the speed of invention has always been a little bit faster than the speed of checking something is safe. Medicine learned the hard way to be a lot more careful, but even in medicines, the studies only last so long. It's very difficult to tell what a 20-year or a 30-year impact is in a 10-year medical study. But there's so much rush to get these things out, of course.
I had a professor in college that used the analogy of running tilt down a steep hill. Nobody can keep up with their head. Eventually, you're going to do it head over heels because your head will move faster than your feet can. And that's what we seem to do with technology. Our head outruns our brain.
There's certainly elements to this. I mean, let's look at one of the big technologies of the recent years that seems to be right there. The driverless car. It's cool. We've all had times when we wanted a drink, but we still got to get home. And thinking of a car that could drive itself home, wonderful. But are we really prepared to pay the cost of a driverless car to effectively go out drinking twice in a year? Maybe that comes up. Maybe. I'm not sure that it really comes in yet. Yeah, it could be safer public transport, but it's going to take years to develop the algorithms where it really is 100% safer.
Yeah, I'd agree. I do think, though, to be fair, I think that we have probably been more cautious with driverless vehicles than we have with a lot of other new technology.
Yeah.
Only because the big automobile companies stand to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, okay, true.
That has something to do with it, right, Doc?
Yeah, I can't argue that one, Gary.
They haven't been lobbying to get things through too fast either, because they're still worried about when an accident happens with a driverless car, how much are they going to be held responsible? What's it going to cost them in monetary terms?
I think it's more about losing customers myself.
I don't agree.
The day where Uber is just everybody has Uber. Nobody buys a car anymore. And you call up or do your text message and a car comes to your door. Millennials will not pay for stuff like that anymore. They would rather take Uber and pay for things as they go. My way of thinking, that part of consumerism is changing. Like in 20 years, it's going to be huge.
I heard that pointed out recently, and the thing they were missing is the fact that they've been hit from both ends. Here in the UK, if you are a young first-time driver, if you are under 25 and you don't have 10 years of insurance history, the insurance costs you more than the car does. It costs you more than the running cost of the car does, and it's simply you don't have to.
For a male under 25 in the U.S., it's 2.5 times the insurance rate as for a same-age female. Okay?
Yeah.
And when you jump into 30 years old, the male is still going to pay about 75% more than a female.
Yeah, so I think part of it is rebelling against the costs there more than a change in how we see Uber itself. We just simply have an alternative to paying those evil swines at the insurance companies, who we don't believe would ever want to pay out anyway. And that's what we really don't like.
But there's
we have to be insured, but we know full well they will try and wriggle out of any actual, payment back.
right, but there's also to people our age, Ammon, owning a car was like, this guy is moving. You know what I mean? He's getting his stuff together. They don't look at that as I don't think millennials really see how do I say it? Stuff as important. They don't put the same
Value
on it. Thank you. Right.
I don't know,
really
because at the
think
same
that,
time, they are the people paying £600 for the latest mobile phone.
like, I would never stay in a motel or in someone else's house. I'll go to a motel. I think younger people are more likely to go to what's it called, B2B?
Airbnb.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you know it, Jennifer. I'll admit I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to.
I'm one of the people. I'm one of the only people I know who still has never called Uber ever.
Neither have I, but I don't have a phone, a cell phone either, so that makes it kind of hard.
I'm right there with you, Ammon. I do disagree with you to a degree, though, Terry. I do think that liability is a major portion of the concern with things like driverless cars. There's so much there. In the U.S., for instance, some guy walks into a liquor store with a gun and kills 3 people, and the family of one of those victims sues Colt, Smith & Wesson or Colt, and the Supreme Court will entertain the case? Give me a break.
But that's the United States, see?
Yeah, well, now you're the one that brings up Luddites, okay?
We got a comment from Tonya Parker who said, millennials might see paying somebody to do it for you as more valuable than having the asset. It's a shift in values rather than a total change. To some people, having a servant was always better than having the thing anyway. The middle class thought they were well off when they had a washing machine back in the day, but the rich had somebody to do their laundry.
I actually have I grew up with cars because my father is passionate about cars. He used to race and so on. I had my own car in Italy, but since I moved to London, I don't feel like in my first flat I didn't even have a parking. Now I have it, but I don't really need it because I use transport, and if I have to go somewhere at night, I just take a taxi.
That is another big point. I mean, let's face it, driving is not a pleasure in so many places that people live today. London is appalling to drive through. I'm sure New York is absolutely no better. There is no pleasure in driving in most cities today.
Yeah.
There's major metropolitan portions of the world where having a car might be nice, but parking is such a novelty, such a nightmare, and such an expense that it makes it impractical.
Yeah. It's certainly tough. It's a changing world. We're going to have to be, keeping an eye on it. There's good and bad in all things. Michael Thomas says he's a firm believer that driverless cars have to be made idiot-proof. Sense on both ends. I think that's absolutely true. The idea, of course, behind a lot of the people who believe in the technology is that, that's more likely with automation. You get a standard. It may not be as good as a great driver, but it's always to the same standard. It doesn't lose attention. It doesn't get distracted. But yeah, you do then worry about, death by hacking. Could somebody hack your driverless car? And if so, what could be done to it? It'll be interesting to see where it all goes. All technology is a bit of a Pandora's box. You open it up and wonders come out, and you hope that the end result is going to be better. But let's face it, this is how a lot of offline businesses first regarded e-commerce. A lot of people back when we started, Terry, Bill, Jen, the internet they hoped a fad. Sounds very risky to me. It's how we adapt to it and how we use it that makes something either work or not work. It's partly on our demand, partly on our acceptance, and partly on the fact that whenever new technology comes along, it always inspires new uses. There's always new ways of using a thing that wasn't possible with the old thing. There's always a few things you can't do as well. I'm certainly interested in a lot of the technologies that are coming up where, battery technology is getting better and better. And that can only be a good thing. The ability to store energy for longer has implications throughout the world in terms of ecology, in terms of being able to generate power and not waste it. Because it's so difficult for most power stations to be able to cope with peak demand but still be efficient when there's low demand. It's the peaks and troughs that create the problems. And as batteries get better, that will really start to equal that out, and it will make solar energy more effective, wind power more effective, and more of an alternative. So it's sometimes the small things that have the big advantages.
Bill Gates and his buddies just put $1 billion into a fund to look at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But sometimes these things don't work out. I mean, let's face it, we all remember that computers were supposed to bring along the paperless office, and most of us probably get more printouts today than we ever used to because printing is so much easier because of computers. Also, at the same time, you've got more and more middle managers being created, and I've certainly seen this in several jobs that I worked in my past. The idea was you had these people to, deal with the work and free up the frontline staff to do more. But the problem is with middle managers and with administrators is that they generate more paperwork than they actually deal with. And then the frontline staff spend all their time having to read this bulletin, that bulletin, this memo, the new rule on this, the new rule on that, and they actually end up with less time to do the job than when people weren't micromanaging them. Gina says that when she lived in New York City, had a car, had to leave it open for people on the street to sleep in. Yeah, always interesting. It's one of those things. We are out of time for this week. I completely missed it as we went past the time. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will be back next week. We will probably carry on yakking in the green room for a little while. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.